us this afternoon for our ASCE Texas section webinar, Strengthening Water Conservation Efforts for a Resilient Houston. As the State Association for Civil Engineers, we are happy to provide this service to the engineering community. If you are not a member of ASCE or the Texas section, I invite you to become a member so that you can benefit from being part of this professional association. Now I'm pleased to introduce our presenter for today's training, Paula Paciorek-Mattay. Paula joined Houston Public Works in February 2019 and is responsible for developing and guiding the strategy for water conservation efforts in Houston via the implementation of best management practices for the city and its residential, industrial, commercial, institutional, and wholesale customers. Since joining Houston Public Works, Paula has focused on strengthening the city's water conservation efforts by developing and implementing a wide range of programs, events, and campaigns. Those include the Smart Utility Checkup, the Wholesale Water Conservation Program, a Water Loss Task Force, the Waterworks Festival, an event called Imagine a Day Without Water, Fix a Leak Week, and a semi-annual rain barrel sale program. Paula has a BA in psychology and an MS in applied geography from the University of Louisville, where she lived for 10 years prior to moving to Houston in 2012. And she has more than 12 years of experience in program development in the water sector. All right, Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike, very much. And thank you, everybody, for having me today. I know you probably are having lunch by your desk today, so I probably will keep it very simple for you. Thank you again for that introduction. As Mike said, my name is Paula Paciorek. I've been with the city for a little bit of over 3 years. And my goal has been exactly this, to strengthen our water conservation programs, looking at the strategies and how we are going to meet our target goals in the future. Let me see if the slides are moving. Oh, there we go. So Houston Public Works, we have a purpose, and our purpose is together we create a strong foundation for Houston to thrive. And our 5 to Thrive values are integrity, teamwork, ownership, communication, and respect. Just a little bit of on the Houston Public Works side and our stats. We're very, very large. We have 4,000 employees. We produce 150 billions of gallons of water, of treated water per year. And we send out 5.8 million water bills per year. We maintain 16,000 lane miles of streets, 3,900 miles of storm drain. So it's a very large job that we have. And of course, we have different service lines that do this work. So on this Houston Water service line, is where I work, we also are very big. We have 1,500 employees, and it's mainly divided between drinking water and wastewater operations. And in the middle, we have other groups that support those two groups, which are planning, regulatory compliance, and operations and program support. And my group, the water programs group, is housed under planning. And as you can see, on the drinking water side and the wastewater side, we are very, very large. And so we maintain a very large volume of assets as well. So on the drinking water side, we have 3 treatment plants. We produce an average of 400 MGD, million gallons per day. And you can see all the other stats there. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stats, but you can see we're really, really big. And on the wastewater side, we're also as well very big. And we have a consent decree I'm sure most of you have heard of. We maintain 127,000 manholes. We have 39 wastewater treatment plants, and on average, we treat 250 million gallons per day of wastewater. So I'm just going to go over a little bit on the background of why we need to conserve here in Houston. It rains a lot. most often we get the questions, why do we need to conserve in Houston with so much rainfall? Everything is good. Everything is great. We're good. We don't need to work too hard at this. But the reality is very different. So first of all, we are in a very, very large area. So we're not just the city of Houston, but we're part of a larger metropolitan area. And this area is already has reached 7.3 million people. So, given, if you know the population in Texas, which is 27 million people, you probably can tell that this is a very high percentage. And this area, which is a Houston metropolitan area, consists of 9 counties with this great population. And the Bureau of Economic Analysis has estimated that the gross domestic product of this area reached $512 billion in 2019. So this makes it the 7th largest US metro economy. It also houses 24 Fortune 500 headquarters and comprises the largest concentration of petrochemical manufacturing in the world. Also, the Gulf Coast, the Houston Gulf Coast region has nearly 40% of the US capacity for base petrochemicals. And as you can see in this slide, there are many more industries and businesses. So you get a sense of the idea of how big the region is, but also how large it's going to get in the next years to come. So one of the things that we look at in terms of resiliency is how much an area has grown. And as you can see, this is the Houston area. And you see the growth. You see the growth throughout the last 180 years, and you also see how many weather events we have or natural disasters we've had in the last 30 years or 50 years. And you can see there's a concentration of these, weather events that have concentrated in these last 30 years, which is significant. And part of it is all related, right? It comes with that population growth and the associated greenhouse emissions. So this is something that's striking for us. We can see that in the 1900s, we have one of our first recorded, right? The Great Galveston Hurricane. And in the last 40 years, we've had back-to-back natural disasters and other weather events that have been very significant for the region and have produced a great deal of impact and stresses. So this is why what we do, conservation and in the context of this resiliency is so important. This is a more of a visual that you can see how the city has grown over the last 186 years. So also that's very significant, and it's just all very rapidly, right? Only in 186 years, and the city has exponentially grown, and it will continue to grow. So within our region, the city of Houston has, we have 2.3 million retail customers or residents. And our residential accounts for single family reach so in the order of 420,000 accounts per year. They vary give or take per year. And we have 15,000 multifamily accounts. For commercial, we have 43,000 accounts. All of these is give or take per year. And in total, we have 500,000 accounts, which in 2019, they produced, we sold to those accounts 85 billion gallons of water. We also have our wholesale customers, which are 64 right now. And in 2019 also, we sold 55 billion gallons of water to them. So we also have GRP customers, which are big customers that are annexating to our system, and they need to gradually shift from groundwater resources to surface water resources. So the city comes in and provides them with the water. So as you can see, this is a very large amount of customers, and the wholesale customers are not even in the city of Houston per se. They also can fall outside the city. So we provide an additional 2.5 million customers that are not in the city through our wholesale customers. This is a kind of a mock-up map of what the size of the city of Houston and how many cities you could put in the city, in the area, geographical area of the city. So you can see this is very, very large, right? We have cities of Miami, Denver, Cleveland, Baltimore, Boston, Washington, D.C. It just gives a great context of, you know, how large we are. This is 650 square miles, by the way. And going back to the weather events and these extremes that we've been seeing in the last decade or so, you know, this is Hurricane Harvey on the left, and this is our Turkey Creek wastewater treatment plant. And on the right, this is the result of the storm, the winter storm Uri, which broke many of our pipes, but not just our pipes, the residents' pipes as well. So, you know, these are large disasters in a way. And so we are going to continue seeing unfortunately, we're going to continue seeing these types of weather events. And so we are preparing for events of this nature. We can't say anymore, well, this is maybe 1 in a 500-year event or 1 in 1,000. We can no longer say that. We're seeing that this is happening also all over the world, so not just us. So instead of working on a reactive mode and just like saying we're going to repair this and just repair and continue being the way we were, we have to think now through an adaptation lens and see how we not only can, you know, fix things, but also prepare for these types of events, even events that we don't know that could potentially happen. So another visual of the extremes and how these extremes also are happening in the same year, in the same season, and even in the same month. This one, for example, you can see the drought monitor in September 2019 was showing a slightly abnormal to moderate drought, beginning of a moderate drought. And then in September 17 to 19, we were hit with the tropical storm Imelda, which dumped 44 inches in our region. And so it was the 4th wettest event in Texas and the 5th in the US. So you can see how these events are just becoming extreme within a very short time frame. So this is some of the things that are happening on the backdrop of water management and what are the things that we need to prepare for. Another thing that took place in the last year, I would say, we've had a couple of reports being put together by the Resiliency Office and the Sustainability Office. One of them was the Climate Action Plan, and the Climate Action Plan had a climate risk assessment produced for the Climate Action Plan was developed by Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, and she put together a fantastic report, and which mainly says what would happen in the next, what we'll most likely see in the next decades in terms of climate here in Houston. And what we are seeing is that we're going to see, and this is a kind of a range, this is a cheat sheet where a range of how temperatures and air is going to behave in the region. So for example, we're going to see by 2050, we might see that temperatures increase, from high temperatures increase from 104 degrees to 106. And we might see more days with 100 degrees or more in temperature. We might see more nights with above 80 degrees of temperatures between 20 and 50 nights, where we used to have 0.6 nights, right? So the heat wave length is also going to be longer. So that means we're going to have longer summers that are hotter. And so in the rainfall, it's going to remain the same, most likely, but what happens is just going to come at different times all at once. So most likely during the fall. So these are the trends that we're seeing in climate in the report, which is very factual, by the way. So it's very important to really pay attention to these trends, because this is what we need to prepare for in the next decades, given the conditions of the emissions that we currently have, and until we kind of start declining those emissions. And so these are many reports that were put together by the city, but of highlight are the last couple ones that are the climate action plan and the resiliency plan, which I think they are going to be drivers for how the city shapes up in the next, the next 10 years, 20 years, because we are right now at the point of intersection, at a point of inflection, I would say, where we really need strong guidance from these reports, but also action. And so having these reports ready right now, it's of great significance, because it means that we are in a position to build properly, to build sustainably, and to all the other efforts that we are working around. For example, Houston is going to also, Houston Public Works is also going to be working on, on a One Water master plan, and that is also going to fall under the umbrella of these other plans, and they will need to be integrated. So as you can see in this is a resiliency plan, and there's a variety of areas where the city will be working on. We have equity and inclusion, infrastructure and economy, health and safety, housing, mobility, and of course, water and climate. And within that water and climate, you have a wide range of areas, right? We have flooding, hurricane, drought, extreme heat, wildland fires. So all of these things are very important in how we tailor and we shape our city to become more resilient. And we'll have to look at each of these areas to build together and leverage our efforts and to build smart. The next one here is, like, you can see that these areas, we'll have to look at these areas not just from an abstract, conceptual, these are the areas to work on, but also from a scale, because solutions, there might be solutions that are great at the regional level, but we need other solutions at the city level, and we will need solutions for the neighborhoods and also at the individual level. So all of these solutions need to be really looked at through all the scales, and also at the intersection of all of that scale are the values, right? The value system that Houston has. And of course, we need to live with water, make room for water, and without water when we have those weather extremes and droughts as well. So this is of great highlight because this comes from Texas. This is the Texas State Water Plan, and this is an approach. So this is an overview from the wider state of Texas. And so we know that the population in Texas will increase 70% in the next 50 years, which is absolutely astonishing and mind-boggling, in my opinion. So all we have to do is, again, prepare. So we know we have the information. It would be much more different if we didn't have the information, but this is a fact, and the trends continue to support those facts. And the demands are projected to increase on 17%, and the existing supplies are projected to decrease 11%. And this is an incredible stat. And of course, this is for the state of Texas, but it's 45% of Texas future water will have to come from conservation and reuse. 20% will be conservation and 25% will be reuse. So this is a very striking stat that is very important to pay attention to. And here you can see exactly that information in a graph. So you can see how the red line is the demand. Of course, it's going to increase because the population is going to increase, and the supply was going to decrease. In many cases, the supply will decrease because of the subsidence, the restrictions with groundwater, and some of other factors is the associated also sedimentation for the reservoirs. So over time, these reservoirs decline in water supply. So you can see that, and I added the arrow there, the orange arrow, which is the gap, right? Those are the gaps which are called out as needs in the state water plan. You will see that all the regional water plans, then that these are called needs. And so this is region H. So I'm sure you're familiar with the regional water planning process. You're here in Texas, so, and you're all engineers. And so our region in region H is 15 counties, including Harris County, where Houston is located. And these are the needs that we will experience here in Houston. And as you can see, they also will grow exponentially through the decades. And these are the areas of need where we see the most need, right? So you can see the municipal is the largest, and I'm sure it coincides with a lot of the other regions in Texas. You know, of course, we have some regions that are mainly agricultural, but in large metroplexes in cities, we'll see that municipal is the largest category of water use, and so you see the increase. And then you have irrigation, and you have manufacturing, and the other ones, mining, livestock, and steam electric. And exactly as I mentioned in the previous slides, is the demand will increase because of population growth, and the supply will decrease due to restrictions in the Gulf Coast aquifer, as well as sedimentation of the reservoirs. So this is a graph that tells a story about what are the needs, what are the conservation needs. These are not just all the needs, but so the needs need to be addressed with water management strategies, and there's a variety of management strategies to address needs. This is just the needs that are going to be they're going to be solved with conservation management strategies. And in the region H, you can see that part of these needs will be addressed with baseline conservation, which is the conservation that we achieve through code, because as fixtures get modernized and we get more high-tech fixtures, and so the new implementations of fixtures and high efficiency appliances natural brings savings to the table, and that's considered baseline conservation. And then the rest, the light blue is municipal. This is conservation, which is what we call advanced conservation that we need to also have, and then irrigation conservation and other conservation. So as you can see, we have a great amount of conservation to do in the region, and just in municipal conservation, we need to conserve 150,000 acre feet. And that's a lot of water. 1 acre feet, I'm sure you know the amount of 1 acre feet, which is 326,000 gallons of water. And that's, again, a comparison with other regions in the state. So this is just a great flow chart that I stole from one of my friends and great colleagues, Jason Afinovics. He's the consultant from the Region H. And I really like this flow chart because it just paints the picture so well of where we get the water from. Of course, this is all surface water. You can see the Trinity rivers, the San Jacinto and the Brazos, and who gets the water, who has the rights of that water, and then how we, provide that water, to whom we provide that water subsequently. So as you can see, we have a large portion of those that water, and then we have a responsibility with it, right? So not only we have to conserve it as a city, but we also have to ensure that our customers also help us with this conservation. So if you ever had to do a water loss audit report, this comes from the water audit, from one of the 2019 water loss audit report from us. So you can see this is how much water how much raw water we took from our surface water reservoirs, mainly Lake Houston. And then you can see how much water we lost through that, just the intake process, and how much water we produce. That's the difference between, we have we took 195 billion gallons of raw water, we produced 166 billions of water. And then from then on, we lost through our processes, distribution system, we lost water, and we lost 26 billion gallons of water. And then the rest was revenue water. And then you have the retail and the wholesale. That's our makeup of how our customers are. So this is a good view to me of what our processes are and where we need to tighten our efforts. And you can see, of course, this is a clear visual of that water loss or non-revenue water is a great focus. And I'll talk later a little bit more about our recent efforts to also work on the water loss area. So also this comes from the 2019 report. This is actually the annual water conservation report. And you can also see the wholesale amount, the volumes of wholesale treated water that was sold. And then commercial, we sold 31 billion gallons of water. We have 26 billion gallons of non-revenue water. Very same volume for our multifamily, very similar volume for our single family. And then we had a non-revenue water for unbilled meter and unbilled meter that's 3 billion for institutional and 2 billion for industrial. So the solution, of course, there's no perfect solution for anything, but it's just a matter of thinking creatively how we can really start educating the public and reducing our consumption through the city and our also customers, wholesale customers and other customers as well, industrial and agricultural. So the solution is we have already the mechanisms in place, and we have been implementing them. But I think right now with everything that's going on, with so much extreme weather events and the focus on resiliency, this is a great time for us to really do a deeper dive on these tools that we have and really follow them to the T and strengthen as much as we can so that we're prepared, and then these events do not catch us by surprise. So we have proactive conservation and drought management or drought response tools. And you probably know the drought contingency plans. And most of the drought contingency plans are in the conservation plan. Sometimes there are two different documents, but proactive conservation is necessary. It needs to be ongoing. And the proactive conservation is a tool to address that increasing population growth. We know that water conservation and that water is going to be the cheapest water that we ever produce, right? So that is the first line of fight. Is that if that's a word? So that's the area where we need to work no matter what. The drought management is the area that we work on and we trigger that stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. When we have an event, could be caused by the drought, but also could be another short-term event. We could have an issue with treatment capacity, right? We might have a plant that is not working, at the capacity that should be working. So that could call a stage in the drought contingency plan. So those are the tools that we need to use when we have a problem. But we cannot use those tools to solve an ongoing problem. Does it make sense? So, and I think that we have to make that distinction. It's very important that we conserve proactively to ensure that when we have a problem, we can use the tool that we have in place, which is the drought contingency plan. So these are the proactive target goals that we have for the city. And I just want to emphasize that these are the proactive goals. We're not talking about drought response. So for conservation, we measure it in reduction in our water use, correct? And so that's our GPCD, or gallons per day per capita. And so as you can see, the orange bars here represent the baselines for 2009, 2014, and 2019. Those are the 5-year previous averages. So, and we had a drastic drop from 2014. Initially, our target goals for our GPCD were going to be 142 and 139 GPCD. But in 2019, it drastically dropped to 129. Now, we think that this is most likely the product of the great rainfall that we get here in the region. We just cannot solely attribute this to codes or energy efficiency, water efficiency, or appliances and fixtures, or behavior, right? We have a great conservation, educational, outreach program, but we need to also, think about the weather. And it was very, in Houston, it most likely is a wet year. So, and we have to also think about that drop is a combination of factors. So we don't assume, oh, we're doing great, Houston is doing fantastic in this area, but we continue working on further reducing those target goals. So in 2019, we adopted new targets, and our goal is to reduce the total GPCD to 127 by 2024 and to 125 by 2029. And the water loss, this is an area of great need of work and focus. So as you can see, we've averaged on 90% water loss in the last 5 years, I should say, prior to 2019. And our goals, long-term goals, or goal to reduce the water loss is in 10 years to reduce it to 10% or less, which is an aggressive goal. Consider the water loss percentage that we have. And our most immediate target goals are 18 and 17, because we know that this is most likely going to be a long-term project. So this area is of great focus for us, and we will be investing in looking at this area greatly in the next decade. And I should say that water loss, of course, that 19% that I just shared, 17% of that is real water loss, and 2%, 3% is apparent water loss. So that's water that is real water loss is the water that is lost through the pipes, and apparent water loss is the water lost through the billing system, computer errors, theft, and whatnot. So when I came to the city 3 years ago, I had worked as a water conservation manager and director in previous organizations, but I really wanted to take a deeper dive on the progression of, water efforts, water conservation programs. And this was a great diagram that I found in one of the American Water Works Association manuals, the manual number 52 for conservation. And it just is that it shows the progression of the evolution of conservation programs through time. And so you can see that first, a utility starts gathering data to inform, right, the next steps. What are the things that the group needs to focus on? What are the programs that will make the most impact in a particular region? But for us, the orange, that's what we had. 3 years ago, we had only education and outreach programs, and I wrote them here. They're like the Waterworks Festival and Museum and Project Wet Training. And actually, I wrote it again, Waterworks Festival. So I apologize for that typo. But so we solely had outreach. We were present in the community with boothing events, etc. but it was mainly outreach and education. And so the next steps in that evolution of conservation is targeted programs for conservation, for specific for residential, for commercial, for wholesalers to reach the goals, right? We have specific goals, and I should have actually, I missed that when I was talking about proactive conservation. Our goals are to reduce the water use demand by 1.6% every 5 years. So we need to reach those goals, right? In education, while education and outreach is absolutely great and necessary, they're not quantifiable. So we need to implement programs that can be quantified and in terms of water savings. So therefore, we had to come up with and develop and implement additional programs. And so what we did is we did everything at once. It was very interesting 2 years because we had COVID in the middle of. So what we did, it was a great time for us to think because we couldn't do too many outreach events. We couldn't have, our water museum was closed. The Waterworks Festival had to be canceled for a couple of years. So this was a great period for us to really think and develop very low-hanging fruit programs that were available to us. Could be EPA because they had already produced campaigns, or very low-cost programs that we could quickly implement and get them running. And then also in the middle of all that, we were approached by 2 universities, Texas State University and University of Houston, to conduct 2 water conservation studies for us. So this was great because it allowed us to really analyze our region and understand what would be the most cost-effective measures and best management practices to implement in our area. So we have those 2 studies ready and available, and they are informing our next steps for how we need to build our programs in Houston. And therefore, with that information, we can move into the next steps in this diagram to meet the 10+ year goals. And of course, then you get into integrated resource planning, which is something that we're also doing in parallel with the One Water Master Plan. And I don't know if you're aware, but we have our first RFP, I would say an RFP for phase 1 of the One Water Master Plan should be released pretty soon. And that's for the community and stakeholder engagement portion of the plan that will most likely take 1 year, 1.5 years. And then the second phase will be released later, shortly after the first phase. So that's something that we're also working on. And as you can see, these are all the things that we have been working on during these 2 years, where we have to think strategically, where do we want to go, right? How we're going to strengthen our programs and implement those, like the most cost-effective measures that we can to really reach our goals and make the most impact with our bucks, right? So, and in the meantime, we developed a lot of outreach initiatives, social media, events. So you can see that on the irrigation side, we created a campaign for winter, which is called the Winter Sprinkler Shut-Off Initiative. So we tell the residents, you don't need to water your lawn during winter. The grass is dormant, it's sleeping. And so you can turn off your sprinkler system. And then in the spring, you can start fixing, your irrigation systems. But we also, right now, we are heavily promoting a tool that is called Water My Yard. I'm sure you've heard of it. And it has ET data for 2 counties here, for the Harris County and the Galveston County, and gives tailored recommendations for the residents. The residents can plug in their information and get instant recommendations if they need to water on. And most likely here in Houston, you don't need to water unless you're like in those very, very dry days. I would say not even months. We have very hot months, but for some reason, we also get rainfall. So, if you ask me, I only water my grass 4 to 5 times per year, believe it or not. So We have a Fix a Leak workshop right now. That's an EPA campaign. We have a semi-annual rain barrel sale. We're participating in the Mayor's Challenge for Conservation, the Wildlands Mayor Challenge. Last year, we were second behind Dallas, and we're hoping to win this year. So I know you're in different cities in Texas, so be prepared because we're planning to win this year. And then we also have other tips during summer, save water during summer, and we have a lot of social media messaging and exposure. And then we have fall events, we have Imagine a Day Without Water, and of course, a variety of additional programs. But this is like a snapshot of what we're doing. And I'm gonna start tightening my time because I know that I don't have too much time. So this is a campaign that we piloted last year. It's a campaign from the Texas Water Foundation, and we were very excited about it when they asked us to pilot. The main campaign is called Texas Ransom Water, and the foundation is hoping that to implement it across the Texas state. And we adopted it as Houston Ransom Water. It was a great success, and we were able to place different ads in the airport, in the Hobby Airport last year, and it was great. People saw it, from flying, and they would call us, and they were very excited to see this ad. We also partnered with the Botanic Garden, and we had different signage placed throughout their walkways. This is another program that it was a low-hanging fruit we developed because it's a public-private partnership. This is a company, a firm that was already producing energy assessments for different firms, and came to us and said, I would love to partner with the city, and I could provide free assessments for water, energy, included electricity and gas for commercial buildings. So we partnered with them. Of course, we said yes, free program, free cost. And so, and it's been a huge success. So I'm going to move to the next slide. So this is the impact report from last year. We had 14 commercial buildings participating. From those buildings, we have an average of $56,000 in savings without any capital improvements or investments. So that was really significant. And all of those savings were through either tax credits or rebates mainly from CenterPoint. So that's on the energy side. We still don't have water rebates, but hopefully soon. And then collectively, they save 4.7 million gallons. So this is a little bit, I'm just not going to go through all of this, but in case you want additional information, and this presentation is available, this is what are the things that some of these buildings were able to implement. So some of them, they changed their chiller, they changed their HVAC system to really achieve further savings. We also implemented a wholesale water conservation program, and this is through a partner, through our consultant Goldwater, who developed this amazing dashboard. And so we basically we allowed all of our 64 wholesalers to participate. They can participate for free. We have all their information already uploaded, and what they can do, this is like a planning tool where they can see different scenarios conservation. We have developed a scenario that is a standard, an accelerated scenario, and an advanced scenario, and they can choose their conservation scenario and see how that scenario will impact their projections on the demand. So it's really significant for them because in many of the cases, they don't have conservation staff in their organization. So this has been huge for them. And these are some of the participants that we have right now. From those 64, we have 15 already participating. This is the second year. So, and these are some of the results today. We have 13 participants that they have selected a conservation scenario, and we have estimated projected savings. I don't have them yet ready, but they are producing them as we speak. And we have a survey that will be sent out to the participants I think it's going to be sent out today or tomorrow, within these days. And the initial feedback from them is that it's a great tool for the annual reporting obligation that these participants have with the Water Development Board. We also put together a water loss task force, and this was great because it allowed us to communicate, to break the silos within the utility, and have conversations and discussions on a monthly basis with different service lines and groups, from customer account services to finance to GIS to planning to regulatory compliance. And so what we did is we used, now I'm just changing to this. So this is a little bit of an overview we talked about percentage in water loss, and this is our ILI, Infrastructure Leakage Index, and the GPCD, which are more, I would say, better KPIs to keep an eye on rather than percentage, which is being phased out by the American Water Works Association and the Water Development Board. And I have this graphic again. That's not, I think the previous place was not the correct one, so I wanted to talk about it. Water loss here, and I apologize because here. Let's go back to this one. This is a good overview of that 19 water loss that I was talking about. So we have, out of those 26 billion gallons of water loss in 2019, 21.6 billion was real, 2.6 was apparent, and then we had the unbilled meter and the unbilled meter, 1.3 billion and 1 billion for the unbilled meter. So also this is a very good information to have. Of course, we see all the trends throughout the years, but this is a good, it's a good representative year to share. And some of the results for the task force that I wanted to share with you is that what we did is we started to assess information about what were the activities that were currently happening by different groups that had to do with water loss control and management. And the way to do this was looking through the lens of frameworks that had already been developed by the American Water Works Association and by the Water Research Foundation. So we took that framework, and which is absolutely wonderful, and they have great documents that say this is what the utility should be doing in the short, medium, long term in real water loss and apparent water loss, and then also auditing and financing. And so we took that framework and we created a tracking document where we started plugging in all the efforts that the utility was doing to combat water loss, of course, real apparent water loss, and also on the auditing area. And so it was great, and we've been keeping track of those activities, and we have now a complete document that is a great snapshot of where the utility is right now with water loss control. So that is allowing us to identify the gaps, the challenges, and how we're going to go about those areas in order to improve our water loss. We also use an existing research by Black and Beach from 2017, which was done through our customer accounts services department. And yes, and we divided, as I mentioned, the areas of real water loss, apparent water loss, and auditing and finance. So now we have a summary of those results, and we will continue working on those areas for this second year. And coming back, and I will be done very, very soon, I promise. And coming back to the Texas State University study that I mentioned earlier. So I mentioned two studies. One of them, which is a Texas State University study, gave us a list of the most cost-effective measures to implement in Houston in the next 5 years. And that's a short term, but it was very, very needed to have. And it was done utilizing the Alliance for Water Efficiency tracking tool. So there's a good tool behind this research. And the most cost-effective tools are the ones that I'm kind of showing here. You can see the benefit cost ratio. So the residential high efficiency toilets for multifamily, the residential low flow shower head for single family, and the home water reports, We also have residential low flow showerheads for multifamily that are pretty high in that benefit cost ratio. So that's what we decided to move forward. So in the next, this is what's next. So in the next year, we will be, we're currently actually working on an RFP for a high efficiency and showerhead rebate program for multifamily, which we hope to implement in the next months or so. And so we're continue to work on all the programs that I mentioned in the previous slides. We are working very closely with customer account services for that third measure, which is home water reports, which is basically means an enhancement of the water bills. And sometimes they have a customer portal. So how we're working with them to see how we can improve these areas and make it really easy for the customer to understand. You know, in some cases they have AMI information, so they have real-time information, and to really understand it well. This is my graph. This is how I compare with my neighbors. This is my threshold for if I have a leak, etc. And then we're also hoping to outsource the water conservation plan for 2024. And the reason is that for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier through the slides, is we really, really want to strengthen our efforts and be and rise to the occasion with the Resiliency Houston and climate action plans. And we need a good and robust implementation plan within that plan that tells us exactly how we're going to meet the target goals, that I'm also hoping that we can strengthen as well. And then we also have a water affordability plan that is going to be developed by the Alliance for Water Efficiency very soon. It has a water conservation component to it, so we're very excited about that. And I mentioned the One Water Master Plan, which is an incredible, and we're very proud here in Houston in the utility to be able to be part of such an incredible process. It's a major thing. We don't take it lightly, and that's why we are embarking on the first phase, which will involve the community and stakeholder groups, because we really want to make sure we have a great plan in place that, of course, will incorporate a water equity roadmap as well. So, and we'll be tailoring it. We'll be tightening. We'll be connecting. We'll be building upon the Resiliency Houston plan and the Climate Action Plan. And I hope this was not too much for your lunchtime. And that's it. I appreciate your time today, and I will gladly take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. Looks like we have a couple questions in here, and as a reminder, feel free to type any questions either into the chat or the Q&A. Our first question is, someone is wondering if AMI data helps the conservation policies. If yes, how was the data employed?
Yes, it does. But however, we are right now, we have not been able to get so much AMI data internally yet, because we don't have a representative. We don't have all the Houston area covered with AMI, and our customer account services is currently deploying additional components of the AMI to upgrade, for example, the endpoints, because we used to have 45% of our area covered with smart meters. And so we're trying to get to that 100%. And so we're fixing our endpoints. So once we have that data coming in and we can actually analyze the data better, it will inform our processes and programs. But yes, in many cities, it's already providing insight for programs. Was that the question?
Yes, yes. We have another one here. In general, what can water loss be attributed to? More specifically, raw water intake and production?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if we're talking about that, you have the raw intake, you're pumping from your lake, and then you lose water right there. So it's kind of almost like inside the fence water loss. And it could be attributed to the production flow meters not working properly, not being calibrated. It could be just water lost through the pipes. So those are the two main areas that I've heard about that and I've read about that are usually associated with this.
Thank you. We have a couple more here. Bertus asks, have you considered desalination plants?
Yes. So the city, actually the region, if you go to all our regional water plants, this is region 8, but each region has its regional water planning group, and they all have a consultant, which is usually an engineer firm, and they put together a pie or a pool, a variety of water management strategies, right? And in those water management strategies, usually you have a small section, a small area of the future water supply that needs to be addressed with desalination. In other cases, could be aquifer storage recovery, building more wells, water reuse, conservation. So they're all parts of the solution for addressing those water needs that we're going to have, so that we don't have any shortages. But what happens is that desal is so expensive that it's not the priority. You first want to start with your low cost water management strategies, which is starting with conservation.
Thank you. And let's squeeze one last one in because it's the last one I see. Have you considered recycling water such as they're doing in El Paso?
So that's a great question. So we don't have a lot of reuse in the city, which is it's kind of it's interesting for us because we have a lot of wastewater and we produce a lot of wastewater. So there's a lot of potential for reuse here in the city. We don't have purple pipe, and we had a study done back in 2015 by land engineers, and they provided us with a great guidance on that area and where reuse could be a good solution for Houston, mainly paired with industries in the port area, in the industrial port area of Houston. So if it happens, it will probably that part of the solution will come with the One Water Master Plan. So at that point, we'll be able to see what is the best approach for Houston for reuse, and it will most likely be decentralized solutions. So rather than centralized reuse plants, and we are looking at specific cases where we can produce reuse for specific plants, and so that for an industry, for example, that is very close by. So we are examining, case by case solutions or case by cases that are being presented to us. But developers, when we approach by developers, we are absolutely look at their requests when they want to have direct reuse, for example, within the facilities for irrigation purposes, for recreational purposes.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for those detailed answers, and thank you again for taking the time to present for us today.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. I hope again I didn't bore you much, and thank you for having me again.